At WarMouse, we not only support today's games, but the old school games as well. This is Akalabeth. It is largely forgotten today, but it was one of the most important games in the history of the computer game industry. Written by Richard Garrett in 1979 when he was still in high school, it not only laid the foundation for the great Ultima series, but was the precursor of both the 3D first-person shooter as well as the modern role-playing game. Running on the Apple II, it was slow, with speeds measured in seconds per frame rather than frames per second. It lacked a number of features that are now standard, like the ability to save a game or sell items. But none of that mattered back in 1979, when the idea of actually being able to wander through the wilderness and explore the dungeons from a first-person perspective was new. This is Akalabeth running as it was usually played on an Apple II Plus with the classic green screen monitor. The controls were all on the keyboard, and very few people owned the chunky thing that passed for a joystick back in those days. The wireframe graphics may look ludicrously crude and outdated now, but believe it or not, they were downright exciting back in the day. The sense of dread and anticipation when entering a dungeon was almost overwhelming. Behold the Akalabeth dungeon. This was the original dungeon crawler, but even with those simple wireframe graphics, you can see the way in which Akalabeth pointed towards 3D texture map games like Wolfenstein 3D and Doom, which were then followed by true 3D games like Quake and Half-Life, and now we have games like the Call of Duty and Medal of Honor series. The bane of the Akalabeth player was the AAS routine. In Akalabeth, you attack by pressing A for attack. The game would then ask, what weapon? If you responded with an R for rapier or H for hands, the attack would then take place. But with the axe, you had two options. You could either throw it or swing it. The problem was that throwing the axe meant you lost it for good. You couldn't pick it up again, so no one in his right mind would ever press T. That meant it was a mild annoyance that gradually grew over the course of a session until you were down on the lower levels of the dungeon, fighting demons and lizardmen, and every press of that unnecessary third S was driving you mad as if it were Chinese water torture. We're proud to say that only 32 years later, the WarMouse Meta has finally solved Akalabeth's AAS problem. With a simple 3-character macro assigned to button B2, you only need one click to swing your axe. This is admittedly like bringing a 152mm howitzer to a knife fight, as the Meta has nearly 5 times more memory than Akalabeth takes up on the hard drive. But overkill is the defining design philosophy of WarMouse, and when we say we're old school, we mean seriously old school. So now, watch as the WarMouse Meta enters the world of Doom. The Meta holds 3,072 commands divided into 64 modes. Akalabeth mode is made up of 36 commands, including the numbers 0 through 9, and all the game's commands such as Y for yes, A for attack, M for magic amulet, and so forth. Attack macros such as attack bow and attack axe swing are assigned to 5 of the buttons. Here at the Adventure Shop, you always want to be sure to buy enough food so you don't starve to death in the wilderness. Moving around the wilderness and dungeons is done with the joystick. Key presses are assigned to each cardinal direction, but the areas are pretty small by modern standards. And here we are in the dungeon. I'm able to move around using the same keys on the joystick, but instead of north, south, east, and west, it's forward, turn around, right, and left. Here we're going down to level 2. We've run into a giant rat and fortunately picked up a bow and arrows. I'm now clicking on the AB attack bow macro, which allows me to shoot at him at a distance. He's running away, but not quickly enough, and I was able to kill him. Now we're moving much more rapidly through here thanks to the DOS emulation being significantly faster than the Apple II, and of course because it's so easy using the Meta's joystick controller. Here's a trap. Lets us go down to level 3. We don't want to go down too far because in Akalabeth, in level 4 already, that's nice. Now these dungeons these mazes are random, and so I have no idea where I'm going, or I'm just exploring here. Showing how we're able to move and enact the commands so quickly using the Meta's interface. There's another rat taken down by the bow, and we'll probably head back up before we run into any orcs or vipers, things that will kill a level 1 character very quickly. And that's another way down. We don't want that, but we did get another axe in case we want to throw one. What we're looking for here is the ladder back up, and there it is. So the interesting thing about the Meta is that here is a keyboard game. It runs only on keyboard commands, and yet you're able to do it without ever touching the keyboard. Now this works just as well on a Call of Duty or a StarCraft or any modern game as it does on Akalabeth. The fact that you can use controllers on modern games doesn't make it any less useful to be able to essentially replace the keyboard with your mouse. And now we're back up to level 1, and looks like we'll be able to get out of here safely. Hopefully we have enough food to make it back to town. And now we've exited the dungeon. 39 hit points gained. That should bump us up a level or two. The problem here is finding the town before you starve to death. This is one of the few games where it's more dangerous just to walk around doing nothing than be attacked by enemies. And there's the town, and we're safely back at the adventure shop. Now, if the WarMouse Meta significantly speeds up the interface of a game like Akalabeth that preceded its development by 32 years, imagine what it can do when you're using it with the games and applications for which it was actually designed. And now that we've safely escaped from the world of Doom, we'll soon be putting out more of these videos to demonstrate the power of the meta in everything from FPS and MMOs to CAD and video production. Stop by the development blog at warmouse.com to keep up on the latest videos and meta-related news.